Welcome to the Creative REI podcast, your go-to hub for all things real estate, business, life, travel, etc. I'm your host, Dante, joined by my co-host, Ed, both real estate professionals on a mission to connect and educate. This podcast is sponsored by PropStream, the most trusted provider of comprehensive real estate data nationwide. What's poppin', everybody? It's your boy Dante with the Creative REI, and we are here with OG house hacker, financial freedom beach bum, my favorite. We probably paddle out together. We just haven't yet, right?
Let's go.
Guys, my guy, Joe Ramos. Joe, you have a total of 16 properties, but 42 doors, which means obviously you got some complexes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
My man, how did you go from 16 properties, 42 doors in 4 different states, California, Georgia, Ohio, and Florida? These are some of my favorent states. Yeah, I like buying in these. Are you my competition?
No, we could just work together.
Sounds like I need to step my game up. That's what this sounds like. Bro, so what's your story? So tell us about Joe Ramos. How did you get into this? What was your journey like from 16 doors to 0? Let's put 0 to 16 doors per se.
Well, just kind of like how you posted, I guess. A lot of people call it like house hacking, but I like to say, I guess I was one of the OG house hackers. I don't know, like
before it was called house hacking.
I didn't even know what it was. I was just,
for Q&As.
I was working in the car business, and well, actually, it kind of started back when I was in Best Buy. I worked at Best Buy, and I got recruited to work in the car business because, I guess this dude liked me. He was a manager at the Volkswagen dealership where I grew up in Riverside, California. Yeah. And so I just kind of went with the flow. I was like, well, I don't want to be here forever. And so he got me into working in the car business, and I got addicted to that in the sense of... You're
a car salesman?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I started when I was like 20 years old, and, the commission-based and everything like that, that was always me. I had a lawn business when I was younger. I had a recycling can business.
Dope.
So, my parents taught me the value of money, and I always learned about how to kind of manage your money, and then the fact of working hard and then making more because you're working commission was something that I really liked. And so from there, I kept on making more money, and just came about. I was renting out a property with a couple of buddies, and I ended up taking that money to the bank, to the landlord. And I was like, dude, this is stupid, right?
Why am I paying this guy?
Yeah, I'm literally taking the money from my buddies and taking it and putting it into the bank for this guy.
Yeah.
And so my tax guy was a family friend that my parents have known since before I was born. And so he's like, hey, you might be thinking about possibly trying to buy a property. And, this is at the end of 2008, and everyone's like,
the crash.
You're crazy.
Don't do it right now. It's not a good time to buy. It's like people talking about interest rates right now.
Yeah, exactly. And, of course, this is the thing. It's I was talking to somebody the other day about this, is I really didn't even know any better. And my parents thought I was crazy because I was buying in a gated community and whatever. But, it just, it made sense. I talked to my guys, and I said, hey, if I buy a house, would you guys be willing to rent a room from me? So bought this place at the end of 2008, and, ended up just renting out the rooms, and my payment was $1,350 or something like that, and they were paying $500 a piece. So it's basically paying for me to live, and I did a FHA, first-time home buyer type of deal.
So house hacked an FHA loan.
FHA loan.
You moved in some roommates.
Okay. Had the 2008 Obama had the Obama credit.
Yeah.
So you got $8,000 back at the end of taxes. I mean, I was paying money in taxes at the time, even though.
How much was your mortgage after everyone paid rent?
Well, I mean, the mortgage, including taxes and insurance and everything, was about $1,325, somewhere around
at that time.
At that time, right? And the rate wasn't even that great. I mean, mind you, I think it was in the 5s. I can't even remember, to be honest with you.
Right.
And that's the thing that I hear a lot. You don't even remember. You don't even remember your agent. And I mean, I do, but you don't remember certain circumstances. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because, like the whole entire, mortgage and insurance and everything was that, and they were paying $500 a piece. So, okay, to me, that's basically free because I was working so much that I never had weekends off. I just kept on saving my money. And granted, since it was an FHA 3.5% down, I put what, $6,800. I got 10 grand back on my taxes at the end of the year.
Okay. So you made money from the car business. You bought your first house with an FHA loan, 3.5%, which I think they have those now, right?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
You got 3 roommates.
2.
Your mortgage was $1,300 or 15?
No, 13 and some change.
And they were each, okay, so 2, so then paying $500 each, $1,000, so $300 a month for rent living in California.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to touch on is commission only. I used to do hourly jobs when I was 16 years old. Little odd jobs, right? Like grocery store, Legoland. You know Legoland? I worked at Legoland. I ran the rides at Legoland for like 6 months during the summer. And then I worked at Quiznos, making subs. And then I got hired on to Sling Phones in the mall, right? And that was hourly plus commission, but it's what you said. You get to create your own paycheck, right? And after I did hourly plus commission, I never went back to an hourly job again.
Yep.
And you kind of stuck to the same thing.
Yeah.
From what it sounds like, right?
Right. Well, because I worked at Best Buy, and Best Buy didn't have...
They were hourly.
They were hourly.
And they don't give you commission.
They don't give you commission like Circuit City did, but you had some pretty cool...
It's out of business now.
yeah, Circuit City is. But
R.
Best Buy had some pretty cool like perks to it. I would... not going to incriminate myself, but you could buy some stuff and
you get some good deals
for a good discount.
You get some really good deals.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, they used to have those DirecTV guys in there. I did that for like 3 years, and I did it in Dallas. And we had 2 Best Buys, a Sam's Club, and a Costco. And so if I wasn't in Costco or Sam's Club, I was in Best Buy. So they typically had me in theater. Our home theater, right?
Yeah, I remember
So
this.
I'd be working with the home theater guys and some of the DirecTV guys didn't have the best reputation because it's commission only, right? So they're like, "Oh, can I help you find something? I'll get DirecTV." And now they're scaring the customer out of the store.
Right.
But I was so smooth I did it for 2.5 years. I built a team. I ended up running my own shop with my own store. I had 3 stores of my own. But I say that because I know how, after doing that, you figure out how Best Buy worked. And so I know you don't want to incriminate yourself, but it's like the open items with your discount is what you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, it was just so much different back then because, I mean, obviously they've changed things. This was, back in 2000, I don't know, 6 or whatever.
Best Buy was dope to be in. You just get to see the latest and greatest stuff too.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I did the cell phones too, funny enough.
In the mobile department.
I was in the mobile department.
Yeah.
I did DI.
They don't pay you commission there though.
No, they don't. But there were certain perks from some of the companies.
Okay.
And then that's actually how I got into the car business because when home theater got big in Best Buy and they started that whole
Magnolia.
big Magnolia.
I know Magnolia.
They moved me over there, and that's where I met the manager that got me into working in the car business. I was helping him out with TVs.
Yeah.
He's like, "Dude, you should sell cars." And I was like, "Cool."
Yeah.
I don't want to be here
making
forever.
money. Yeah. You're making money. They give you good benefits where you're an employee. They give you just enough to make you satisfied, but not enough to like get you like a level up, if you will, unless you're good at managing your money per se, right? But then you go and you do, because that was mind-boggling for me to start off doing cell phones and then see that the cell phone guys are not making commission. I'm like, bro, they're robbing you guys. Like, you're getting robbed.
Yeah.
Right? But I also learned a lot. When those Magnolia stores opened, I worked in, it was a Magnolia design center in the heart of Grapevine, Texas, which was right next to a town called Southlake, I believe, where all the ball players lived, right? So any of the Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Cowboys, Texas Rangers, they would all come into this particular store and they would design their home theater, like $50,000 home theater, $80,000 home theater. And then you went to Sling, which dealership?
So I started at Volkswagen.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but like when I started there, it was just, I guess because I was so young, I wasn't really like making a lot of money, but then I made my first sale and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is freaking nuts.
What have I been thinking the entire time? I should have left a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I actually I was working both jobs at the same time because I wasn't too sure. And so I stayed at Best Buy, but then when I started making good money at the dealership, I was like, oh dude, I just didn't even go back. And and then I ended up, cause I didn't finish college. I went to college for a year in San Luis Obispo for engineering. And it was actually the best thing that ever happened to me because honestly, like getting in the car business and building that up and then moving out from, on my own because my parents were charging me rent since I wasn't going to school. Yeah. And so it would just kind of give me that kick in the butt to
go do your own thing,
to do something. And so then I did, and I kind of feel like great because the guys that were graduating college at the time that I should have been weren't even getting jobs because the state of the economy, right? And so anyways, after that, I just kept on, after I got that house, it was just like, I kept on working, I kept on saving money. And then a couple years later, I bought another one. And then a couple years later, I bought another one. But one thing I want to reiterate to people is that my goal was to buy, like at least 3 in that same location where I grew up in Riverside. And I always wanted to move to the beach. So it was like, okay, I'm going to work my best to try and like buy a couple properties in the same area. And, of course, things don't always go the way you wanted to. The second one, there was kind of something that happened and I ended up having to pivot, but I'm still glad that I ended up buying a place, even though it wasn't the place I originally thought I was going to. And I had to do, investment down loan, blah, blah, blah. But, and at the time it was like 2011 or 12. And I mean, that was my best one. If I could have bought like 5 or 6 of those more. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Let's do the breakdown on your first house. Cause I think this would help a lot of viewers that might have jobs and save money right now. Right. You had a job, you saved up, you got a 3.5% down payment. Obviously you got to have credit. Okay. And then you obviously had 2 years of stated income, right? Yep. Which made it easier for you to qualify for the loan. So those being the 2 things, right? Good credit and 2 years of stated income can get you 3.5% of pretty much any house as long as you can show you make the payment.
Well, I'm not a mortgage broker, but because I did commission, it did have to be 2 years. For some people, it doesn't.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I thought it's always been 2 years.
Yeah. So I mean, most of the time people are working at their job longer because obviously it takes time to save up money.
Right.
But this is another thing I learned within this whole thing as well. I switched different companies, and even though I was on commission because I worked the same position and moved to a different company, when I bought my 4th house moving to the beach here in Huntington Beach, I was actually able to, since I didn't have a huge time gap in my work history, I was still able to kind of transfer that over. Right? Okay. So I mean, again, I'm not a mortgage broker. I did take, a test on getting it. I have my real estate license just because, but I've been through lots of different types of loans. And so I kind of understand it. Like my wife, before we got married, I actually taught her how to do a second home, 10% down loan, vacation loan, even though she didn't even own a first home.
On Big Bear.
Yeah.
That was on the Big Bear deal.
She didn't even own a first home.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, oh, well, how can I do a second home loan or a vacation home loan
if you never had a first house?
Never had a first house. But it's still possible. And I've never even done a loan like that.
10% down.
10% down.
Ed's 22 years old, has already got 2 properties of his own.
There you go.
Hell yeah. I mean, obviously out of state, but still.
Yeah.
22 years old. I love that. So, okay, 3.5% still goes on. You had the 2 years of stated income because it was commission, not a regular 9 to 5.
Right.
And then you moved in 2 friends that paid $500 each towards your $1,300 mortgage.
Right. And so one thing I want to reiterate is there was another house that I really, really wanted that was more expensive, and I didn't buy it because it was more expensive.
Right.
And so that's another thing I forget to tell people a lot is I was very, very frugal, and I didn't spend a lot of my money.
Right.
And so that kind of that helped. And still, even to this day, I try to be very frugal and not spend a lot of money on dumb things. But
you got what you like too. Because I see you off-roading up to Big Bear.
There you go. Yeah.
So you got the regular way up to Big Bear, and then you got the way this guy goes.
From Joshua Tree into Big Bear.
I want to do that run though. I I think some people would like to go.
Let's go. I mean, that's why I've been wanting to get a place out in the desert so I can keep like a Can-Am or something, some kind of toy there, and then do that run and back and forth and whatever, you know. But
our last guest did that. He did Akatia Wells. He got the.
I love Akatia Wells.
Yeah, I've only been out there once when I was 16, but I've never seen so many stars in my life.
Yeah.
You ever been to the desert?
No. Just Colorado, but that's not desert.
Yeah, it was like South Colorado.
But the stars were cool though. That's what
It was. It was super nice. Okay, so cool. So for the viewers out there, you went from house hacking, buying a house on a first FHA home. You then got renters in there, and then from there, how did you go from one house to
the next one?
16 properties and 42 doors.
I mean, it's a long story. You know, honestly, I would have gotten there a lot faster if I wouldn't have kind of screwed off in my life.
Right.
I mean, I'm 36 years old now, and I probably would have got there a lot faster if I didn't mess around. I mean, you know, I've always been a Christian, and I've always been, you know, a God-fearing person, but I kind of lost my way throughout my journey working in the car business. It was really hectic. And now that I've gone back, you know, like a couple years ago, I kind of, you know, went back into the church and started changing my life and started not messing around anymore. And not to say that this is what really helps you propel, but
it helped you work on here.
Yeah, you know, and it helps you focus on the right things. So one thing I would say is that I would tell people to, you know, just really focus on your goals and focus on your life, instead of just messing around with being in the world.
Right.
And so for me, you know, I did have a goal, and that's one thing I'll tell people is that, like my mom always told me, is like, you know, a dream or a goal is a dream with a deadline. Right. So you have to have a timeline to it. And that was my thing. I wanted to have 3 properties before I moved out to the beach. I wanted to move out to the beach and buy a house by the time I was 30. Right. You know, and even if you don't land it at that time, at least you have that time, because then nothing's just floating up in the air. So, so the way things went for me was, you know, I kept on working in the car business, kind of like just doing things here and there, but still acquiring properties, because, you know, I kind of thought, wow, this is really powerful. And so the second one, I thought I was going to buy this cool house and with the pool really big. It needed a lot of work, but my dad has taught me a lot of things, and they live, you know, in Riverside where I lived, and he's very talented, and he's helping me out on a lot of properties to this day. But that thing kind of went haywire, and that was my first learning experience with a bad realtor and a bad lender. And so, hey, you know, that was a good thing actually that I didn't get that property. God's looking out for me, because that one that I ended up buying was even less expensive. I did have to do an investment loan, put 20% down, but it was only $185,000. And mind you, I still have these properties to this day, and they're worth just a stupid amount of money. And I've never even lived in that one, and it's been rented out the whole time. And yeah, I've put little things here and there into it. But I'm really glad that I didn't get the one that I was thinking about getting, because then I found the realtor that really was awesome that I bought.